The effort to recall New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell, the city's first female leader, has failed. An official count of petition signatures showed just yesterday. Cantrell has repeatedly criticized the recall effort as a Republican-led attack on the administration of a mayor who is Black, a Democrat, and a woman. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders on Tuesday signed a law prohibiting transgender people at public schools from using the restroom that matches their gender identity. The first of several states expected to enact such bans this year amid a flood of bills nationwide targeting the trans community. And former Florida GOP legislator Joseph Harding pleads guilty to COVID relief fraud charges. Harding, who sponsored what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill, pled guilty to wire fraud, money laundering, making false statements, and other crimes. He fraudulently obtained $150,000 in COVID relief funds from the Small Business Administration and subsequently made 3 transfers, each involving more than $10,000, to his joint bank account to pay his credit card and into a bank account linked to a business entity. The Manhattan grand jury that has been hearing evidence about Donald J. Trump's involvement with the hush money payment to a porn star did not meet today, suggesting that any indictment of the former president would come Thursday at the earliest. Well, TikTok lands a major ally on Capitol Hill. Democratic Representative Jamal Bowman of New York is defending the app, rejecting efforts to ban TikTok as ill-advised and part of a fear-mongering campaign with undertones of xenophobia around China. A federal appeals court has ruled that a lawyer for Donald Trump must provide notes, transcripts, and other evidence to prosecutors investigating how classified documents remained at the former president's Mar-a-Lago home months after a subpoena to return all sensitive files. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by 2 brilliant contributors, George Mason University professor Dr. Michael FAUNTROY and former chair of the Milwaukee Democratic Party, Chris Walton. And in this hour, our justice correspondent, DION RAYMOND, is here to give us the latest on the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. That trial is in the second week, and there was some shocking revelations coming out of that courthouse today. Dion will be here with the latest. And in hour 2, it's all about the former president. Will he be indicted? And if so, will it cause a constitutional crisis? I have 2 political strategists to debate the indictment or potential indictment of Donald J. Trump. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking about in real time today. If you know me well, you know I love New York City. Yes, I love St. Louis, I love LA, but I really love New York City. And I want to give a big shout out to the Big Apple because they did something today that makes me really proud. The New York City Audubon Association voted to drop Audubon from its name over concerns that the racist legacy of the 19th century naturalist and illustrator John James Audubon has become a barrier to its efforts to become more inclusive. The conservation group, which is a chapter of the National Audubon Society, made the decision earlier this week by a majority vote of its board of directors. Now, this is important to note because the vote was called after the national organization reached the opposite decision last week. Yes, the national organization voted to keep the name of John Audubon, concluding that the organization transcends the person's names. Now, my folks in New York rejected this bogus argument. And the New York chapter is joining a handful of other Audubon chapters, including those in Seattle and Chicago, as well as organizations like the Nature Forward, formerly the Audubon Nationalist Society. These organizations have distanced themselves from Audubon, who we all now know held workers in slavery, yes, and harbored racist views towards Black and Indigenous people. Now, many people don't know about the Audubon's racist history, but when they find out about it, it becomes, as you would expect, a barrier to getting folks involved, particularly people from communities of color. And the reality is the nation has changed. The demographic has changed. Yet Birdie and those who support the Audubon Society continue to be overwhelmingly white. New Yorkers and those other chapters of the Audubon Society know that if they want birding to become more inclusive, they know they must, and which is why they did, cut ties with an enslaver. That's Real Time and Real Talk. When we come forward, more on KBLA Talk 1580.
Need legal help? Attorney Jovan Blacknell is an aggressive trial attorney specializing in criminal defense and civil litigation. Look no further than the law office of Jovan Blacknell. From personal injury to criminal defense, Jovan Blacknell has the knowledge to protect your rights. The law office of Jovan Blacknell understands the stress and anxiety that come with legal issues. That's why the law office of Jovan Blacknell supports the right to a fair trial. For Los Angeles Council member Mark Ridley Thomas, are you facing a legal battle? Log on to fightforjustice.com. Don't go through it alone. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell fight for your rights. Log on to fightforjustice.com. Let the law office of Jovan Blacknell take the worry and stress out of your case. Call 310-469-9117 today for a free consultation. That's 310-469-9117 or log on to fightforjustice.com. Law office of Jovan Blacknell, where experience and dedication make the difference.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One and a member FDIC.
King C. Gillette is the modern man's answer to their facial hair. Complete your beard and grooming toolkit with a set of King C. Gillette personal care products perfect for your beard style. Their beard and face wash gently cleanses to leave your skin and hair feeling soft and smooth. It's also infused with coconut water, argan oil, and avocado oil, topped off with the King C. Gillette signature scent. Master your style with King C. Gillette.
The way we spend our time defines who we are. You're listening to Areva Martin in Real Time.
I'm back with Professor Michael FAUNTROY. Hello and welcome back, Professor.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always good to be with you.
Thank you so much. And joining him, another brilliant mind, is former Democratic Party Chair for Milwaukee, Chris Walton. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
So, as much as I hate to, we got to talk about Donald Trump. And I say that every day because this man figures out a way to keep himself in the news. So after he spent the weekend telling his MAGA base that he was going to be indicted on Tuesday, and let's note for the record, Tuesday came, Tuesday went, and he was not indicted. So that just goes to show that Donald Trump often doesn't know what he's talking about and just likes to whip up, a lot of, just chaos. But he did that to see, in some ways, Chris, this was like a test. Who was going to come to his aid? And particularly his base wanted to see what Ron DeSantis was going to do. And DeSantis was a little late in coming to the aid of the, what I'll call, what some folks describe as the mob boss. What do you make of that, Chris, about how late DeSantis was to the party, and then what he said once he did show up?
When your opponent is lighting themselves on fire, you do not get in the way to stop them. And that's honestly, DeSantis is a little smarter than I gave him, than I thought he was. And that's what this proves. It's a campaign. Why would he jump out to save his opponent? This is not about making Donald Trump president. This is about making Ron DeSantis president, in Ron DeSantis' opinion. Now, for me, I think I agree with you. We did see who was going to show up. And the largest protest that we saw was out in front of Trump Tower saying to lock him up. And so I'm looking forward to seeing whatever happens. I think, I hope, I pray that people are tired of this and people actually want to get past this. And should he get indicted, which he rightfully should be on multiple charges, I think we should be able to try him fairly and put him away.
You raise a good point, Chris. He called, as he was telling his base he was going to be indicted, he called for there to be this massive protest. Well, the first problem is a lot of these protesters are in jail because they tried that on January 6th, so they're sitting in jail cells. But I thought it was so funny. One of these protests was so small, there were literally more reporters, more media, more journalists at the alleged protest than there were actual protesters. And then I saw another one when the journalists, stick a mic in front of someone's mouth and say, "Are you out here protesting?" They're like, "Oh, no, it's not a protest. We're just out here showing our support." So people find, I think they got the message. Like, I may show up at something, but I'm not out here trying to get arrested. I'm not out here trying to be like those people, of the January 6th insurrectionists and have my whole life upended. But Professor FAUNTROY, when DeSantis did say something, he criticized the district attorney in Manhattan, said he was weaponizing the office and he was using it for political purposes. But then he dropped a diss in there. He said, but, I really don't know anything about paying hush money to porn stars, over alleged affairs. I can't speak to that. So it was such a little gangster diss. And, Donald Trump does not take kindly to being dissed, even though he can diss everybody. What do you make of DeSantis, dropping that little lug in as he's allegedly criticizing the DA in Manhattan?
Well, it's the kind of shade that I think will be very much in play throughout the campaign for DeSantis. And in some respects, all of the Republicans who are running, Trump's message on Truth Social announcing that he was going to be arrested and calling for people to protest was really an attempt to smoke out people, to find out where they are and hope to generate and galvanize some pressure on the New York DA. Of course, all of that failed, but what it also did was provide the Republicans who are thinking about running an opportunity to walk a fine line. And that fine line is criticize the process without criticizing Trump, because all of them hope to inherit Trump's voters should Trump no longer be able to run. So that's why DeSantis and Pence and all these other folks are being very sort of dulcet in their tones regarding this. They know that Trump is dirty, but they don't really want to go down that road because they don't want to offend his supporters. And so it's easy to criticize the prosecutor because the prosecutor has other fish to fry and can't really respond. And by the way, shouldn't respond. But as far as I can tell, at least at this point, President Trump's number of supporters, public supporters, is dwindling. And I will make this last point. You will notice also that the only person in the House who made any real statement about this was the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. And what he said was, we're not going to have any protests. We don't support that. And so I think that tells you all you need to know about what the Republicans in the establishment are hoping happens with Trump.
Yeah, I think you're so right, Professor, about this was a tactic to smoke out folks and to see where folks would land. But, Trump loves a good fight. I mean, he just lives for a good fight. We saw that during the 2016 election. So when DeSantis throws that shade about, well, I don't really know anything about porn stars. Trump could not resist himself. So he comes back, Chris, and says, Rondesanctimonious, one of the many, nicknames that he likes to give people who he's feuding with, will probably find out about false accusation and fake stories sometimes in the future as he gets older, wiser, and better known, shade, when he's unfairly and illegally attacked by a woman, even classmates that are underage, shade, or possibly a man, shade. I'm sure he will want to fight these misfits just like I do. So in this post, Chris, he basically calls the man a pedophile. He says he's gay. And he says nobody knows him. Trump managed to get all of that into one response to, and let me add the fourth one, calling him Ron DeSantimonious. What do you make of Trump's response? And is this kind of sparring going to help Trump, or is it going to help DeSantis?
I'll tell you who it's going to help. It's going to help reelect President Biden. That's who it is. And if they want to spend all day fighting amongst themselves, that's great. Because luckily, neither of them are in the White House, and we have an amazing president and vice president who are able to actually push an actual agenda forward, fixing healthcare problems, fixing our infrastructure, making sure our environment is clean. So I say, go for it. Go all the way and say be big and bad and bold you want to be, because while they're doing all that, we're leading this country back from the 4 years of the mess we got from Trump, and we're going to make sure he's not coming back one way or another.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, let's just stay focused on our agenda. And that agenda is lifting up people, helping people who are in crisis and making the lives of Americans better. The Republicans, let them set each other on fire, let them attack each other, and throw lobs all day long. But you're right. What we are happy about as Democrats is we have a functioning White House, free of drama, free of drama. We got to go back to the beige suit that Obama wore to find some drama with our Democratic Party. But here's something that is happening with Democrats, Professor, that does have me worried. This recall effort for the New Orleans mayor, LaToya Cantrell. She says this was a Republican attack on her, Black woman, a Democratic Black woman in Louisiana or in New Orleans. It's not that alone, but there are elected Democratic officials throughout the country who are now facing having their power stripped away from them by laws being passed by legislatures or legislative bodies controlled by Republicans. I'm thinking about my hometown of St. Louis. They are trying to take the police, control of the police, away from the city of St. Louis. Has this first African-American mayor in the city of St. Louis, and they're trying to wrestle control of that police department away from her. They're also trying to unseat the first Black female district attorney in St. Louis. What do you make of these efforts, and how concerned should we be as these Republicans are trying now this new tactic to undo what the voters have done by voting these people into office?
So this is an existential threat to Black politics around the country. What we're seeing is blue cities and red states being attacked in any number of ways. We know also about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, and other parts of the country in which you have these Black leaders being undermined statutorily because they can't be beat electorally. Right. And so it's a real problem. And the Cantrell recall effort was particularly notable because there were, in two different sort of steps, there were over 60,000 signatures submitted, and only 27,000 of them thereabout were actually legitimate, which did not meet the threshold to call a recall election. Now, this is a really big deal because one of the best ways to destabilize government is to have it constantly having to legitimize itself following elections. We had an election, she won, let her govern. If she does something illegal, then okay, you can go for that. But what you can't do, and what you shouldn't be allowed to do, is to use the recall process to attack people that you can't beat. And so I think that's what's going on. And I just want to encourage everybody to keep an eye on that. While in California, it may not be a big deal, I can assure you that in other parts of the country, it is, and it's growing.
No, you're so right. It's a huge deal. And Chris, you have been the party chair. You party chair in Milwaukee for a period of time. What can the Democratic Party in some of these cities like New Orleans, like in St. Louis, where they're trying to strip Tashura Jones, that African-American mayor, of power over the police department? They just gained power of the police department in St. Louis about 10 years ago. They want to give it back, or they want to give it to the state to control, saying that she's lost control, that the department, is running amok. What can parties do, like the Democratic Party in some of these cities, to help these elected Democratic officials not lose their power because of the votes being taken in their state capitals?
We got to win. We have to win. And honestly, this has been going on for a long time at this point now. The Republicans have, even in Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee put forward legislation to actually increase the minimum wage. The state Republican legislature stepped forward, even though they campaigned on local control, and knocked back down the minimum wage laws that were put in place. They constantly have been doing these reprehensible pieces of legislation. In Tennessee, they just actually cut the city council of Nashville in half. In Milwaukee and in Wisconsin, they will not give the city the funding it needs to fund itself. They literally say they're in favor of local control and take the money away from the local area and spend it around the rest of the state, which they consider the real Wisconsin. The Republicans in the Wisconsin state legislature, when Scott Walker lost as governor, they actually took powers away from the governor and the attorney general and brought them to themselves. So this is nothing new, and they're going to continue doing this, but we have to get out there and win. The local areas, these major cities, Atlanta, they're doing it right now. They're going after the DA in Atlanta for doing her job and actually going after Donald Trump for his election fraud case. What we have to do is get out there every single election and make our voices heard, and clearly and loudly, that you are not going to do this. We are actually in favor of local control. That's why we elected these people, and we'll get rid of them if we want to get rid of them. We can't allow these Republicans to keep running over us, and we have to fight back. We have to fight back, otherwise we're going to lose the local government. The local government is the smallest, closest government that gets to you, and we're getting it taken away from us.
Yeah, you raised such a good point, and I think, Professor FAUNTROY, people who are in blue cities in red states think that it's enough when they go and vote in their local election for their mayors, for their district attorneys, not realizing, as Chris said, that it's been going on for a while, that these red states have been trying to strip these blue cities and blue counties of their power. How do you think we get the message out to people that it's not enough to vote in your local municipality election? You've got to be laser focused on that state house, because these state legislators, whether it's who gets to go to what bathroom, who gets to read what books, who gets to take what AP course in high school, they have a lot of power. And you can vote a local person in, and they can come along and strip that person of that power.
So I know we're running up against the clock, but I just want to mention two things really quickly. First is there needs to be, in addition to what Chris was talking about, a litigation campaign. We know that there needs to be some coordinated litigation going on in these states challenging these changes. We just saw a consequential example of that in the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Sometimes this stuff is tedious, it takes a long time, but protecting what is rightfully ours will require that. And then the second point is something I tell my students all the time, and that is the rules impact the results, all right? So if you let me make the rules, then I will have a particular kind of government that reflects my values. These state house elections and these county council elections are just as important as any other election that goes on. And the state legislatures that are literally engaging in civil war against parts of their own states for nakedly political purposes have to be dealt with at the ballot box, as Chris noted, but also in the courthouse, because none of these things are going to happen in just one direction. You need a multi-pronged approach to address them all.
Right. No, excellent point. You want to jump in, Chris? Final point?
No, that's so true. As a matter of fact, we're doing that right now in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court election that is taking place in 13 days will literally determine the majority on the court, which will determine if we have the right to an abortion in the state of Wisconsin. We'll determine whether we get to have mail-in drop boxes for our absentee ballots. We'll determine even just gerrymandering alone, because Wisconsin is the most gerrymandered state legislature in the nation. There's no reason Republicans should have 2/3 of the state legislature and have lost a popular vote 3 times in a row. So this is all true. We have to win that state Supreme Court seat, and those Supreme Courts, circuit courts, every election matters, and we have to get everybody out there to vote for every single election.
No, excellent point. And as a lawyer, I couldn't agree with both of those points more. And that's why who's in the White House matters, because these cases will make their way up to the U.S. Supreme Court eventually. These big cases around gerrymandering, these big cases around voting rights, obviously around abortion, around local control. These are the kinds of issues that make their way through our federal court system, through the appellate courts, and then ultimately to the Supreme Court, which is, to your earlier point, Chris, shout out to Joe Biden for Ketanji Brown Jackson. Elections matter. Who's in the White House matters, because that president gets to make appointments of those critical Supreme Court justices. Thank you so much, Chris. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Thank you, Professor FAUNTROY. Always a pleasure to see you. Your brilliance, both of you all, so brilliant on all of these points. All right, after some sports traffic and news, some shocking news that happened in the federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. Stay with us, KBLA 1580.
In real time when we come forward.
I'm Julius White. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. One senator is urging the CEO of Moderna to not go through with a 5-fold price increase for its COVID-19 vaccine.
As a matter of public record, U.S. taxpayers spent $12 billion on the research, development, and procurement of the NIH Moderna COVID vaccine.
Vermont Senators Bernie Sanders made that comment as he had Stefan Bonsell before his committee on Capitol Hill. Moderna is looking to soon charge $130 compared to the $26 it charges the federal government right now. And former President Trump may have knowingly and deliberately misled his own attorneys about classified documents in his possession after leaving office. ABC News reports that's what a former top federal judge wrote last week in a sealed filing. I'm Julius White on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and DINnews.com.
In Bellflower, 91 westbound right at Clark Avenue. Got the right lane blocked with an accident. You're hitting the brakes from Artesia Boulevard. In Costa Mesa, 73 northbound at the 55. Got a crash where a car went down that right shoulder embankment. In Glendale, 134 eastbound to the 2 South connector. Got that crash cleared to the shoulder of that connector. And in Echo Park, 101 northbound right at Glendale Boulevard. Got a fallen tree partially blocking the on-ramp.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. Plus, we guarantee they'll fit. Blindster.com.
Is this the takeover? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers have 10 games remaining to get it right. The final push for a playoff spot in the Western Conference begins tonight at home against Phoenix. The Lakers are 2 games under 500. At the moment, the Lakers are not in the playoffs. No progress in talks for a contract extension between the Chargers and running back Austin Eckler. Eckler wants to be traded if the Chargers don't give him a raise. Eckler is scheduled to make $6.2 million this season. He wants to be up there with the $10.1 million deals given to running back Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants and Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates Women's History Month, sponsored by Walmart. As we celebrate Women's History Month this month, KBLA Talk 1580 would like to spotlight women leaders in our community who are creating positive change. If you or someone you know is making a difference in your community, please nominate them with a 50-word or less post on why you feel they should be included in the KBLA Women's Series, sponsored by Walmart. These women leaders will be featured on KBLA, interviewed on KBLA, and participate in a panel discussion hosted by Areva Martin in real time. Visit the KBLA app or log on to KBLA1580.com to nominate a woman in your community that is creating positive change. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
My name is Allison, and I was involved in an auto accident, and I didn't know what to do. I went to 3 different attorneys for help, and they all gave me the runaround. So I called Levias & Associates. Arthur Levias asked me a few questions and then put me on the phone with an attorney, and they took care of everything. I got more money than I ever thought possible. Now I refer Mr. Levias to all of my friends and family, and we're always happy with the outcome. Levias & Associates, no one can help you better.
My name is Arthur Levias, President and CEO of Levias & Associates. My
Levias
promise to you
Associates.
is that we will continue to give you the very best service possible and refer you to an attorney that will fight hard to get the very best results for you. Levias & Associates for all your legal needs. Auto accidents, slip and falls, workers' compensation,
No one can help
criminal
you better.
cases, family law. Whatever your legal need may be, call Levias & Associates. 1-800-500-7047. 1-800-500-7047. Levias & Associates. No one can help you better. Levias &
Congratulations to Revolution Company for being this week's winner of KBLA's Office of the Week. Log on to KBLA1580.com to enter your office to win lunch for 10, delivered by John O'Groats Family Restaurant.
I'm back, and we have breaking news from the LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas trial. In a sudden turn of events, the defense rested its case today after calling 12 witnesses and a total of 18 over just 2 days. According to those who've been inside the courtroom every day of this trial, the defense today put on what even the most experienced trial lawyers will agree was a masterclass in how to efficiently and effectively defend a case against the seemingly unlimited resources of the federal government. The most striking thing about this trial, in addition to the defense's powerhouse lawyers, is the veritable army of supporters who have shown up this week in that courthouse. On Tuesday, more than 30 people showed up to support Ridley Thomas, who has spent 3 decades in a range of elected offices in Los Angeles. From friends, former employees, and even a private sector figure who worked with Ridley Thomas in the mid-90s when he was first on the city council, the courthouse was packed with supporters. This audience might seem unimportant, but trust me, it's not. It's strategic, both in how these supporters assemble in the direct sightline of the jury and in the court of public opinion, as their presence demonstrates the network that separates this case from that of other Los Angeles elected officials who've been tapped by the FBI in recent years. This includes ex-city council member Jose Huizar, who was indicted on federal charges for his role as the head of a sprawling pay-to-play scheme targeting the real estate development industry. In that case, pretty much everyone jumped ship and left Jose Huizar alone as he eventually pled guilty to the charges. But the prosecution in the Mark Ridley Thomas's case faced a different set of circumstances. They faced these powerhouse lawyers, and the prosecution spent the last 2 weeks trying to convince the jury that it had a slam dunk case based on emails. Now, some of the media covering this trial suggests that the feds had a paper trail that proved all of its allegation. But the defense has been fighting back over these last 2 days, arguing to the contrary, that all the feds have is a bunch of emails and that no one with inner knowledge has blown the whistle or raised any red flags that would constitute federal criminality. Defenses argue that these emails just show one thing, that Ridley Thomas really likes to use emojis in his emails, especially ones with faces that smile or wink. Lots going on in that courtroom today, and I'm so happy that our justice correspondent, DION Raymond, was there for the action, and she's joining me now to give us the breakdown of what happened, and she's also joined in this segment by Bobby Grace. He's a veteran prosecutor. We wanted to tap Bobby's experience and get his take on what's next and what we can expect when the defense and prosecution go at it over those oh so important jury instructions. Welcome, DION.
Hi, Areva. It is so good to be here today. Very exciting day.
Absolutely. And Bobby Grace, are you with us? Glad that you were able to join us. Well, while we work on getting Bobby, I think we may have some technical problems. I'll let the producers work on that. Let's start, DION, though, with this whopping 12 witnesses, including 2 county supervisors, county employees, Sebastian Ridley Thomas's mother, and Mark Ridley Thomas's wife, Avis Ridley Thomas, an executive, former executive from a nonprofit involved in this incident, and even some ex-employees of USC. How did the defense put on 12 witnesses in a day that ends at 2 o'clock?
They did it very efficiently, very thoughtfully, very organized, always having documents at their fingertips, and just great command of the facts. Strategically and just professionally, it was a masterclass. They kept their direct examination very narrowly focused. And I think you would agree, Areva, that it's much more challenging to be fair, to be focused and to be narrow than to just kind of, be out there and welcoming and inviting narratives. And that worked very well for them. Prior to today, we have seen the judge sustain the majority of the government's objections. Today, she was sustaining the defense's objections. The main objection was exceeds the scope of direct. And what that means is that the government, when they came for cross-examination, they wanted to take their questioning beyond the range of questions or topics that were introduced on direct, and it worked very, very well.
Yeah, I just want to take a second and really explain that, because that's a really important and big point. So when you are questioning your witness, when you call a witness, that's direct examination. And you have to be so careful as the lawyer when you're questioning on direct, because you could do something that's called open the door. So if you ask a question that's too broad, or if it's beyond what you really want that witness to testify to, you could open the door to topics that you don't really want to get into. And once you open that door, that gives the other side, in this case, the government, an opportunity to just walk and in some cases run right through that door and now start questioning that witness about topics that you would rather not have introduced into the trial. And when you start objecting, the judge is going to say, sit down, you open the door, and now the other side gets to go for it and ask those questions. So you're saying the defense was so strategic and so calculating and so focused and effective in its direct examination that they didn't open the door for any of those subject matters that they'd rather not have introduced in this trial. Talk to us, DION, about who some of these witnesses were.
Absolutely. The first one that they called today, and this would have been witness number 7, because they had called 6 yesterday, was Carmen Frierson, a former employee of USC who worked with Marilyn Flynn. And she worked in the area of accounting. And one of the things that the government has just kind of hammered on was the urgency in terms of having to process this $100,000 donation to send it to the United Way. of California. And so what they brought her on to show is that this money, the reason why there was an urgency is that if they did not send that money out prior to their fiscal year end, which would have been June 30th, they would have lost it. It would have gone to the provost account. It was a use it or lose it. And so this countered the government's theory that she was working very quickly, unreasonably so. So when the government came back and tried to ask her, well, at the time that you were processing this donation and sending it out, did you know that Marilyn Flynn was also working on having Sebastian Ridley Thomas admitted to the school? Shut down, couldn't ask it. And this happened quite a bit, actually. And then there was David Galvez, another USC employee who works in USC's community and government relations. And he talked about how USC and Mark Ridley Thomas's staff worked cooperatively around the re-entry program, about this facility that was, the idea was to have it in the community that was close to USC and to collaborate using USC's resources from the School of Social Work. And he testified that there was senior leadership who had concerns about bringing this population, as he put it, into the community. And so he talked about how they worked cooperatively around this particular issue. Also, there was James Wind, who formerly worked at USC. And he was one of the individuals at USC who was one of the groundbreaking architectural individuals on the initial telehealth contract program. For him, Areva, he said in an email to another employee that this kind of work, because remember, this occurred way before COVID, and this would have given youth, particularly in the foster care system, right, access to health in ways that they otherwise may not have. He described this as his holy grail.
Wow.
And so the reason for that was to show that the not just the concern, but the interest, or even the commitment to this program and to this contract predated the alleged bribery and conspiracy period.
I think what's so interesting, Dion, is that these are former employees of USC. The government had an opportunity to interview these people, had an opportunity to bring them in their case in chief, and they didn't. These were witnesses the government did not want this jury to hear from. And it was the defense that brought these witnesses forward. When we come forward, we're going to talk about some of those county employees and who was the star witness today in this federal bribery trial. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Sculptor Ed White in downtown Atlanta. Some of her contributions to the movement include being instrumental in the desegregation of Atlanta's hospitals, going undercover to investigate employment discrimination, organizing events for the SCLC at the time of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and more. I'm Aisha Cairo, and that's your K-Black Minute News.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com for LA today.
The law office
I'm back with KBLA's justice correspondent, DION Raymond, and she was in the courtroom today when that breaking news happened. Mark Ridley Thomas's defense rested his case after calling 12 witnesses. We just talked about some of those USC former employees who testified today, but there were also 2 LA County supervisors who made appearances in that courtroom today to describe, in some ways, the mundane and the months-long bureaucratic process of crafting and filing motions and what it takes to have money go out the door of the county. There's been this image painted by the prosecution, DION, that Mark Ridley Thomas had some emperor policies, and that he unilaterally could cause a contract to be given to USC. But tell us how those supervisors disabused the jurors of that concept and talked about the vote that it takes by all 5 elected supervisors to get money out of the county.
Yes, Areva, I think Sheila Kuehl probably did that best of all. But before that, Janice Hahn came on and she testified that the Probation University motion was actually her motion in response to the government asking her whether or not Mark Ridley Thomas or any of his staff had tried to pressure her. And she let them know, well, it was my motion. I thought Sheila Kuehl was very effective. And that she talked about when it comes to initiatives and contracts, first of all, that the LA County Board of Supervisors don't talk to each other one-on-one about these matters. They have staff members who are subject matter experts in various areas, and they work in clusters across the different supervisors' offices to talk about these things. And then their staff members brief them on it and give them the benefit of their expertise. And like what Sheila said, but it's not just them telling us what to do. We bring and bear experience to these to this process. And also she said that she wasn't pressured to vote on any of these contracts regarding Probation University. What was really important about her testimony is that she talked about the board really supporting DCFS University, Probation University, and that the youth in county systems experience, as she put it, a specific type of mental health challenge and issues because of the, quote, deep mental health needs of our young people and that they have, and those that are in their care. And so what I liked about that is that she really brought the conversation back to what the contracts were all about and how important they are to LA County constituents.
Well, let's talk about some of those other county employees, Emily Williams in particular, who talked about having received the so-called, smoking gun letter from Marilyn Flynn from USC, the letter that was delivered confidential to Mark Ridley Thomas. Tell us what those staff members that used to work with Mark Ridley Thomas said about that letter and about Mark Ridley Thomas getting a letter like that from Marilyn Flynn.
Yeah, she was very poised and showed herself to be very experienced in this area as Dr. Ridley Thomas's former senior deputy of human resources and child welfare. She said that she did see the letter and that Dr. Ridley Thomas called her and another staff member into his office and showed them the letter. And that the purpose, and also that they got letters like this all the time, that it was very common. And the purpose of bringing her in was to point out one of the items in the letter that related to her specific job duties and responsibilities. And it was her responsibility to have the other staff members who would be responsible for those other items to get that letter and to act on it.
I don't know, DION, if the defense is going to do this. Well, I really do know, because they're gangster like this. They're going to argue, if I'm in a conspiracy, and there's a letter written to me that memorializes the conspiracy, the last thing I'm going to do is call in 2 of my employees and say, look, employees, here's the conspiracy letter. Here's the letter that here's the letter that memorializes and summarizes a conspiracy to commit a crime. That's just not plausible. Criminals, people involved in illegal activity don't tend to call in people and say, here's the letter memorializing my criminal conduct. I can't wait to see how the defense handles that in their closing argument. I don't want to run out of time. Got to ask you about this star witness. I know you believe that the star witness today was this expert who testified on behalf of the defense. Tell us what this expert said.
Ann Ravel, who is a lawyer, let me just tell you a little bit of her credentials. In addition to her being a lawyer herself, she was the chair of the California Fair Political Practices Committee dealing with ethics and regulations and campaign finances, and part of the Federal Elections Committee that was created in the wake of Watergate. She gave a little history lesson. Essentially, Areva, what she testified to was that $100,000 donation that went to USC did not violate any finance laws, any finance campaign laws, none whatsoever.
Wow.
She said that the money going to from USC to United Way of California did not violate any laws, even though it would have benefited the nonprofit that Sebastian Ridley Thomas was to lead and to direct because he's not a dependent or a spouse.
Hold that thought, Dion. I got Bobby Grace on the line. He's a veteran prosecutor. Bobby, I want to ask you, how huge is it for the defense to have an expert witness get on the witness stand and say that one big element of this trial, the donation of $100,000 to this nonprofit, did not violate any law? What does that mean for the prosecution and the defense?
It's a big win for the defense because one of the major tent poles for the prosecution's case is that the object of the conspiracy was to violate campaign election law by funneling this money illegally. And so if the defense is able to take that away, it's a major dent in the prosecution's whole case, because it appears from what I've been reading and following that the prosecution hasn't been able to prove as of yet anything that was done illegally. And if you can't prove anything that was done illegally, it's going to be difficult to prove to a jury that there was any kind of bribery or conspiracy to commit bribery or wire fraud going on.
Bobby, help us understand what the haggling is like right now inside that courtroom over these jury instructions, because that's next. The defense has rested, the prosecution has rested. Now comes the jury instructions. The judge is going to read those instructions to the jury, and then both sides will give their closing arguments. And this case will be in the hands of the jury, if not by tomorrow afternoon, Thursday, definitely by Friday. So what's going on in this argument over these jury instructions?
So the defense is going to try to get admitted what is known as pinpoint instructions, laser instructions, if you will, to have a laser focus on what the prosecution has to prove for both bribery and conspiracy to commit bribery. What they want to do, Areva, is they want to show the jury that the prosecution hasn't proven its case as it relates to bribery, and they want to make sure that the jury understands very clearly what has to be proven by the prosecution to prove a bribery case.
And to the counter, what does the prosecution, I got about a minute, Bobby, tell us real quickly, what does the prosecution want those jury instructions to say?
The prosecution wants to stand pat on the instructions that they've already given around bribery, around conspiracy. As Reva, as you know, as being a lawyer, jury instructions are everything in terms of the prosecution being able to explain to the jury how the defendant violated the law. So they want to make sure that everything is status quo with respect to the standard instructions that would be given in a typical case like this.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby, for that information. We're going to be watching closely. Obviously, Dion will be back in the courtroom tomorrow as we suspect that those jury instructions will be read. We'll know who won the fight over those jury instructions, and Dion will be there as the closing arguments are given in this federal bribery trial of LA City Council member Mark Ridley Thomas. Not expecting today to see him rest his case. not expecting today to see what was supposed to be a 4 to 5 week trial come to almost a closing today, Wednesday. The defense putting on 18 witnesses in just 2 days. Talk about a masterclass by this defense team. All right. Thank you so much, Bobby Grace, veteran prosecutor. Thank you, DION Raymond, KBLA's justice correspondent. We will see you tomorrow, same time, 4:35. Up after news, traffic, and sports. More on trending news and the debate about Donald Trump and his pending indictment right here on KBLA Talk 1580.